So those were two incredibly powerful intros. It's going to force me to go off my script a bit to catch up and compete with those intros. I stand between you and this amazing conversation that we're all going to listen to here over the next hour, so I'll keep this brief. My name is Brant Barton. I'm the chair of the board of 1% for the Planet. It's terrific to see everyone here tonight. It's great to have such a warm welcome from our Portland network and for everyone who's traveled far to be here tonight. I came in today from Austin, Texas. I was hoping we had some good representation here. We like to call Austin the Portland of Texas. But I have been on the board now for 6 years. I'm in my third year as board chair, and over that time, it's just truly amazing and inspiring how this network and the impact of this network has grown. So thank you for all that you do to be part of that. I'm extremely excited to introduce this next conversation because these are two people who are never quite satisfied, and they always feel that we can reach for more, that there are ways, things that we can do to go further to address the challenges facing our planet and our own backyards. And in my mind, this is a great way to start our event with a reminder that while we've been incredibly successful, there's so much more that we can be doing. So over the next hour, our fearless CEO, Kate Williams, will lead a conversation with Yvon Chouinard. And Yvon needs little introduction with this audience, but he truly exemplifies vision and tenacity. It's taken that to build the mission-driven company Patagonia, which we all know and love, as well as 1% for the Planet. And yet, on top of all that, he remains, as ever, a passionate advocate for the environment, courageous, always willing to demand real and positive change from himself and from everyone around him. So thank you, Yvon, for being here with us tonight. It's very special. Thank you for your vision and your leadership of our movement. And thank you, Kate, and everyone on the 1% for the Planet team, which everyone worked so hard to put this event together and bring us all together tonight. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks a lot.
All right, this is so awesome to look out at all of you and to look over at you. So I think we're going to sit on opposite couches. If anyone wants to come up here and join us, we have room. So, what amazing introductions. Thank you, Caroline, for just perfect way to start this off. And thank you, Jeremy, for welcoming us here. And Spencer for having the vision for this place. And Brant for your leadership and your great introduction. So, to the main event, we're also psyched to have this chance to talk with Yvon and to hear some of his stories. So we're going to just dive right into that. As you all know, Patagonia has taken a stand many, many times, has always made sure that they stand for something. And like Caroline, Yvon has said many times that he's a reluctant businessman who got into it for reasons other than growing a business. So we wanted to talk with you some tonight about being a company with a point of view and sort of how you got there and what the journey has been like. So we thought we would start, since there are many companies here who are just starting or who are new on the journey, hear your sort of how I built this story. So my first questions for you are, when Patagonia was in its early days and struggling to get off the ground, what were some of the pivotal decisions or the key moments where you kind of got yourself onto the path that you now find yourself on?
Well, part of our success is that I never wanted to be a businessman. And I've given talks at universities and stuff, and I tell these young people, I say, look, life is a lot easier if you break the rules than try to conform to them. And so life has been pretty easy for me. And, you invent your own games, you can always be a winner. And the other thing I think is, I used to make all the climbing equipment. I was a blacksmith, and we made all all the hard goods for climbing, and of course we had to have quality in our mind the whole time, because if something broke, it could kill somebody, and in fact we were our own users, so it could kill one of us. So we took quality very seriously. And then when I started making clothing, I didn't want to lower the standards just because we were making clothes. So we started making clothes the same way we made the hardware. So we would start with the principles of industrial design, which is you have a need and you identify what that need is, and then you build according to that.
And was that connected for you to the environmental principles the whole time, or at what point did quality and saving the planet come together?
You know, I've lived my life in nature for so many years. I mean, I used to sleep in the sleeping bags for at least 250 days a year, and I've done climbs on every continent, including Antarctica, and I've been around the world enough to see, you know, all this degradation of nature. And so my own philosophy is I consider myself part of nature, and you know, not that many people do. They feel like they're above nature, and I'm part of it. And so when I see nature being destroyed, I feel like I got to do something about it. And so, you know, that's why I continue hanging on to this company, because it's my resource to do something good.
And when you created 1% for the planet, that became a way that you could invite other companies into being that. And I think, you know, you're looking out at the fruits of that, and it'd be great for all of us here to hear that origin story of 1% for the planet.
Well, before we did 1%, we would give 10% of our sales before taxes. And then I noticed some other companies saying the same thing, and I knew that, you know, at the end of the year, the principals would just give themselves a big bonus, and there was hardly any profits. So they, you know, 1% of nothing is nothing. And so I said, look, you know, this is not philanthropy. This should be a cost of doing business. So that's where we went to 1% of sales. So whether you're profitable or not, it's a cost of doing business. And so we included in our pricing and in our costs. And so that changed. It's no longer philanthropy. I don't think it's philanthropy. It's rent for us living on this planet.
And in recent years, Patagonia and you yourself have become more vocal politically on environmental issues and in other ways. And how would you say the sort of history of giving has tied into that activism for you? How does your philanthropic giving support your credibility as an activist?
Well, that's a big question.
It is.
I'd say that, you know, this year we changed our mission statement because we didn't feel like we were doing enough, and the whole global warming thing is so serious. I mean, it is deadly, deadly serious. And so I wanted to focus the company on that. And so we changed our mission statement to basically very simple. It just says, you know, we're in business to save our home planet. So what does that mean to every single person in my company? And I've gone around and I've asked each person to say, okay, think about how that affects your job. And it's changed the company incredibly. And the company itself has had to say, okay, you know, in the past we've been giving to about 1,000 different organizations every year, and they're mostly activist organizations, you know, the little ones that no one will give money to because they're too radical. And but I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to focus on climate change because, you know, there's, like David Brower said, there's no business to be done on a dead planet, and that's what we're facing within your lifetimes. And so we asked ourselves, okay, what can we do? You know, does it do any good to give money to Friends of the Polar Bear? Well, that's a symptom. You can pour a lot of money in trying to save the polar bear. To save the polar bear, you got to save the planet. So, okay, so what can we do that actually works on the causes? And we broke it down into 4 categories. And one is agriculture, because we use a lot of natural materials like cotton and stuff. And growing cotton organically doesn't do the world any good. All it does is causes less harm. But it's using cropland that should be used for food when people are starving. And we need to be capturing carbon through our agriculture. Well, the way cotton is grown organically doesn't capture any carbon, because every time they plow, there goes the carbon back up into the air again. So this year, we started a program in India, 125 farmers growing cotton regeneratively and organically, which means no plowing. They're using cover crops. They're using compost. They're using, these are little tiny farmers, you know, 1.5 acres or so. And they're getting rid of bugs with natural ways, and it's been a total success. Their crops came in better than they've ever had, and we're going to make the first product out of that this spring. We're making some stand-up shorts out of regenerative, organically grown cotton. Now that starts doing the world some good. It's capturing carbon, it's employing people, and it's creating a good product. And it's building topsoil. So agriculture is our number one, and then the next thing is changing this evil government that we have. We got involved in politics. I hate politics, but we had to get involved. Last year I think directly responsible for voting in John Tester in Montana. And, you know, we didn't tell him anything about this. We just did it on our own. And so we're going to use that power that we have to do something about the political situation. And then we're going to put money into wild places, public lands. We're suing Trump right now for what he did to the Antiquities Act. And we're going to work on big destroyed areas on the planet that are no longer capturing carbon, but they could if they were brought back. So that's kind of it. It's really focused our company. Like, you know, we have sports ambassadors. Well, we're no longer hiring a surfer because he's such a great surfer. If he's not an environmentalist, he doesn't get hired as an ambassador. And so each one of we just had tools for grassroots ambassadors, where we brought in 50 of our ambassadors and taught them how to be more effective activists and spread the word out. So that's what's changed in my company just recently.
Just a few things. So it's easy for us to all listen to you and you know, just see what Patagonia is doing and just think you always sort of had it figured out. And I know you probably had to make some gutsy decisions along the way and probably had some setbacks.
No, not at all. Let me say, I've never had to make a gutsy decision. It's just the right thing to do. And I mean, you know, after we sued Trump, these conservative congressmen from Utah on the Committee for Natural Resources in Congress got up and said, we're going to boycott Patagonia because they're making products in Asia with slave labor and child labor, and I mean, just total lies. And this is the government coming against us, and they're using our wild places for their own benefits and stuff like that. And let's call a boycott on them. Well, the day they called the boycott, our sales went up 600%. I wasn't very gutsy. Just bring it on.
That's great. And thinking back to your early days when you were sort of building up to that, were there, you know, before you had the clarity and the power behind you, you always had the clarity, I think, actually, but before you had the sort of power of a larger company, what were some of the sort of moments when, and I'm thinking about, you know, all of us in the room, we're finding our way forward. How did you deal with some of the setbacks that I'm sure you faced along the way?
Well, I can tell you that the most critical time in any company is when you're turning from an entrepreneurial company to the next step. And a lot of entrepreneurs won't step aside. And because, you know, if you're building a retail store, the person that sets up the retail store is not the person you want running the retail store. It's totally different mentality. And so we went through that. I mean, I'm a wigged out entrepreneur. I love breaking the rules, and I love, my job in the company is to come out with some crazy ideas and dump them on people and walk away. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, but I could never, ever manage a company. I don't like people telling me what to do, and I don't like to tell people what to do. And that's why we have this policy of, you know, let my people go surfing, where we just basically hire self-motivated, smart people, and then we leave them alone. And it works. It works fantastically well. But that one stage, and we went through that, where we outgrew our britches, got into financial trouble, and I swore I never wanted to get into that stage again. So you know, the quickest way to go out of business is delegate to the wrong people. And the best way to manage is to delegate to the right people. And so we've been able to do that. But that's a cautionary tale for all of you, that at some point you've got to change from being an entrepreneur to either being a manager or step aside and let someone else manage.
What's your process for hiring those best people? How do you find the smart, motivated people who you can just let go?
You know, since we changed our mission statement, I told the HR department, you know, for every job opening we have an average of 900 people apply. Last summer we hired 16 interns. That's all we could handle through the company. 9,000 people applied. So we can choose the very, very best people. And so I said, look, all things being equal, always from now on choose the one who's absolutely dedicated to saving our planet. And so, you know, you can imagine our retention rate's pretty high, and everybody is super motivated. And that came from changing our mission statement.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about sort of what you see ahead. Like, what are some of the next things that you want to tackle? I know in the last, you described some of the things you've been doing in terms of regenerative organic and, you know, pushing back against the current government, but what are some of the other things that you see ahead for Patagonia and for your own work?
Oh, man. I mean, I'm kind of I'm sitting here talking to you right now, and that's about it. I live in the present pretty much. Well, I guess I'd say I'm very, very excited about agriculture, because I think if we start doing agriculture the right way, it's been proven by universities around the world, the French government, Russia. Putin has declared that all agriculture in Russia is going to be organic. How about that? This is Putin. So we could capture all the carbon that we're emitting through agriculture if we did it the proper way. And that's got me really excited about. I've always thought we needed a revolution, and the only revolution we're liable to have, I think, is through agriculture. And so that's where right now we're trying to establish a regenerative organic certification. You got to go way beyond organic. You know, 2012, the Stanford University did a study on organic vegetables. They said they found no difference in nutrition between organic and non-organic. That's kind of shocking, right? But why do you think that is? Well, if you go buy carrots at the supermarket, organic carrots, they're probably grown in Baja California. And between each crop, they just put liquid nitrogen and some soil amendments, and that's it. They're not putting the nutrients back into the soil that they've taken out. And so if you go to a supermarket and the organic carrots and the regular carrots taste exactly the same, it means they have the same nutrients. There's a direct correlation between taste and the total nutrients. And so we're going to win this game by convincing people that if you grow regeneratively with cover crops and compost, that you're going to get more nutrition. We're working with scientists around to prove that. And, you know, there's a scientist at UCLA we worked with who's a world expert in gut biome. Our gut biomes are 40% as healthy as they should be compared to hunter-gatherers. You know, your average woman in a hunter-gatherer society knows the names and use for 500 different plants. When you sit down with a baked potato and a steak and a salad, you're starving your gut. And that's where we're getting all these autoimmune diseases and stuff. You know, you got different nutrients in spinach than you do in kale. I was just talking to a woman who used to work for Sunset Magazine, and they had chickens about 10 years ago out in the yard all over the place, and they were eating all kinds of stuff, and the eggs were coming out, these bright orange yolks. And so they decided, hey, let's check the nutrients in these eggs compared to so-called free-range eggs from the supermarket. The nutrients was off the chart. Like vitamin D was 7 times more. And she listed all the nutrients they found out. You know, no matter how organic a chicken is, if you're feeding it only grain, you're starving that chicken. Because chickens are dinosaurs. If they were bigger, they'd eat us. They need to be eating bugs and worms and all that stuff. And that's what makes those eggs so nutritious. And so that's what gets me really excited, is that if we can prove the connection between taste and total nutrition, can you see your marketing ideas going around in your head? We're part owners in a buffalo ranch in South Dakota, and those buffalo have a choice of eating 300 different plants on a daily basis. And we compared the meat in those buffalo compared to other buffalo ranchers who take their buffalo to the stockyards and feed them GMO corn and soybeans for the last 3 months of their lives. The micronutrients in those buffalo are off the chart. And theirs are 12% fat, mostly omega-6 fat, which is the bad fat. Ours is 3% fat, and it's omega-3 mostly. Huge difference. And that's how we're going to win the agricultural game. That's how we're going to get people to really demand going beyond organic. So that's what gets me super excited.
That's great. And I know that you're super excited. I know you're also super excited about fish and fishing, of course. But since we're in the land of salmon, it'd be great just to hear some of the work and travel and learning that you've been doing about fish and fisheries.
Well, that's a depressing story. I just finished a book that's coming out this month. It's a collection of writings I've done over the years, and there's an essay in there that's never been published about threats to cold water fish. And basically, our cold water fish they're toast. You know, salmon are on their way out. Jack Stanford, University of Montana, says salmon south of Alaska, they're gone. It's really a sad deal.
And do you see any hope spots around that, or?
Around fish?
Yeah.
Well, I'm tying walleye flies.
That's about it.
Well, we just produced a film called Artificial, and I think we're going to show it in Portland in a few days. But okay, a week from this Friday. But it's really slams hatcheries and open net fish farms, salmon farms. And I wanted to do this because it's about arrogance of humans, that we're better than nature. I mean, you know, the fish in the classroom programs that go around in the schools and they teach kids, they give them little eggs, fish eggs, and they watch them get born, and then they raise them, and then they dump them in the river. You're teaching kids that you don't need wild fish or wild rivers. You're teaching them that we're better than that, and we can, you know, produce fish like crazy. There's one hatchery on the Columbia River. They finally closed it down, but if someone caught a fish from that hatchery, whether at sea or when it came back into the river, it cost the taxpayers $68,000. That's how inefficient these things are. And then these, you know, if you're eating Atlantic salmon that came from these open net farms, you're eating antiviral medicine, you're eating antibiotics, you're eating heavy chemicals to kill the sea lice. You're killing yourself. And that's what we're trying to show in this film. But mostly it's just the arrogance of people, and that we've got to get back to working with nature rather than trying to control it.
And 1% for the planet is also about like working with each other. And so many of the people in this room are the, you know, future generation of activists who will be, you know, continuing the good fight on the issues that we now face and on future issues. And what would your advice be to people who are, you know, setting out with new businesses, with an interest in, you know, being the next activists?
Well, I know a lot of you, when you start out, you're wondering, okay, where am I going to give this money to? And it's easy for us to give 1,000 grants a year because we've done it for a long time. We know who we're giving money to. We don't require big, long paperwork. You know, I know one environmental foundation that has an overhead of $20 million a year to give away 40 grants. That's pretty crazy. So how do you figure out what you're going to give to? Well, have some fun with this, you know. Give it to what you're passionate about. If you're a fisherman, give it to organizations that are working on these threats to cold water fish. If you know, you're interested in coral reefs and your product is you know, chapstick and stuff, do something about it. So, I mean, you know, I mean, first of all, it's really fun to write out that first check, I can tell you that. And it gets even more fun when they get bigger and bigger. And, you know, we don't want to become martyrs, that's for sure. Just find out what you're really passionate about and then find out who's doing the good work and give it to them.
And are there some organizations, I know that you're often able to, you know, get out and meet some of the small nonprofits that you see doing great work. Are there some that you've been really excited about in your travels recently? Just people you've met, nonprofits that you've met who you just really feel like are doing a great job leading the charge?
Well, you know, with our 1%, we're not going to use any of that for climate change. We're going to continue. We're giving away $10 million this year to grassroots activists. But we're also getting a $10 million rebate on our taxes. So we're against that. So we said, well, let's give that away. So we're using that $10 million separately from our 1% to use strictly on climate change. Well, you know what? That's good business. I'll tell you why. Because a couple of years ago on Black Friday, one of my employees, like 3 days before Black Friday, said, hey, why don't we just give all our entire revenue for Black Friday away? So I said, okay. So they called me at 3 in the afternoon and said, oh, the year before we had sold about $2.5 million in our own stores on Black Friday. And they called me at 3 in the afternoon and said, whoa, it's up to $6 million. And then finally it closed out. We did like 10 million or 12 million. And I'm thinking, ooh, that's getting to be a lot of money. And you know, you can spend $5 million on a 20-second ad on the Super Bowl, and that's just a waste of money. It costs you a lot of money to get a new buyer. And I thought, well, okay, we got, you know, these new buyers, but our sales now are going to go to hell all through Christmas. Our sales continued going like this all the way through and after Christmas. And they've been going like that since. It's good business.
Enough said. So as we wrap up here, I'm just thinking about, again, we have a great day ahead with this movement, and we, you know, are continuing, this whole group all over the world is continuing to do work all over. Do you have any, what would be your sort of primary advice that you would give to all of these fabulous 1% for the Planet companies?
I don't know. I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you being members of 1%. Like I said, don't be afraid to break the rules. It's a lot easier than trying to conform. and there's no risk. Forget the risk thing. Everybody in my company, you know, my biggest job probably is to get people to change, to embrace change. You know, you can't run a $1 billion company like you ran a $250 million company. You have to constantly change, and, you know, it's called evolution. And there's so many people that are afraid to change. They look at change as being a risk instead of an opportunity. So that's the advice I would give is keep evolving. And the way you evolve is through stress. Without stress, there's no natural selection happens. So invent some stresses.
Well, thank you so, so much. And we are, this wraps us up for tonight. I'm sure that there's more conversation to be had, and it wraps up this portion of tonight, but that portion of tonight continues on. So we hope that there will be, you know, lots more conversation, and then we have a big day tomorrow. And our thanks to Yvon for being such an amazing leader for all of us.
All right. Wow. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, and thanks Kate here, we couldn't find a better person to run this organization here.